I'm Adam in Wales, and this is my board gaming vlog, and today we're just going to be talking about some new updates, the sort of things that have been going on for me, and the sort of things specifically that I've been noticing upcoming. So new versions of games, new releases, that sort of thing. Now, what I'm not going to be talking about is Gen Con, because Gen Con is coming up very soon. This is one of the biggest, well, it's the biggest board gaming convention in the US, a sort of US equivalent of Essen in Europe, with slightly fewer games that come out, but far more events that go on, and large numbers of people that go there. Now, I've been watching the Essen previews and the most anticipated game from some of the other board game reviewers, and it's been interesting to do this. I've not really done it in previous years, because there's never any hope of me actually going to Gen Con, whereas I do go to Essen each year. But what I have noticed is how what an emphasis there really is on those American-style games. It seems that that distinction still holds true. We've got a wealth of games about fantasy and sci-fi and battling and fighting, and very few of the video reviewers talking about their most anticipated games are talking about family-style games and children's games, whereas at Essen, the most exciting games that I see there are the games by Zock Verlag and Hook and Friends and Harbour and Dry Magiaspiel, and these are the sort of family-friendly games. But what I have noticed is over the last week or so, there have been a whole load of announcements from other companies about what's coming up later in the year. Uwe Rosenberg fans have got stuff to be excited about. He's got a new game coming out, which is a 4-player tile-laying game with little Tetris-type pieces. And if that's starting to sound familiar, who knows? Is this going to be something similar to a 4-player Patchwork, which is something which I've always thought would work very, very well. I love the game Patchwork, a brilliant tile-laying game, but only for 2 players. So if Cottage Garden becomes something like that, then that's fantastic news for all of us. The other bit of Uwe Rosenberg news is that Tasty Minstrel Games are going to be producing a new a complete a repeat of a new edition, let's call it that, of At the Gates of Loyang, which is one of the Harvest trilogy. It's hard to call it the Harvest trilogy anymore, but Uwe Rosenberg, when he first released his big box games, Agricola, Le Havre, and At the Gates of Loyang, they were a trilogy of games. Of course, now we have Ora et Labora, and we have Caverna within that sort of range, so let's call it the Harvest family. But At the Gates of Loyang has been out of print for a few years now, and so it's nice to see it coming back. And Tasty Minstrel Games have a knack for picking these older games and bringing them back just as people want them. They did it recently with Luna, another game which is beautifully illustrated by Clemens Franz, similar to Agricola and At the Gates of Loyang. In At the Gates of Loyang, players grow and trade vegetables in China 2,000 years ago. The game lasts 9 rounds, and each round consists of 3 phases. The first phase sees players harvest, taking 1 vegetable from each of their fields and adding a new field to their display. The second phase sees players draft cards to introduce new traders, helpers, and customers. The third phase is the core of the game, as players take actions. They can sow vegetables on their fields, buy vegetables from the shop, trade them at a market stall, sometimes 1 for 1, sometimes 2 for 1. They can use special actions, so-called helper cards. But the main crux of the game is serving customers. Red customers are one-off casual customers. They pay well, but only once. Purple, regular customers expect repeated deliveries and become cross if they don't receive them. Ultimately, money is spent to advance up the path of prosperity, and at the end of the game, the most successful trader wins. At the Gates of Loyang, originally, I believe, if memory serves me rightly, it was designed before Agricola. And then it almost like a precursor to Agricola, dealing with that farming and growing of vegetables, selling, trading. It actually was released after Agricola, and to sort of a mixed reaction, largely because the 2-player game of At the Gates of Loyang is fantastic. It's brilliant. I love it. It's one of my favourite games. The solitaire game is very, very good. But once you add in a 3rd player and a 4th player, it becomes a bit of a problem, because the game is largely solitaire and you do an awful lot on your turn, which leads to massive problems of downtime while you're waiting for other stuff to go ahead. And there's this weird sort of 4-player version that's been sort of stuck in there. Anyway, I don't want that to put you off because it is a magnificent game. Tactile, beautiful, strategic, not too difficult to pick up, really clever card drafting mechanisms in there that I haven't seen in any other games. A couple more exciting projects that have probably been a long time coming. I'm surprised they haven't arrived yet. But we have Power Grid, the card game, coming from Freedom and Fries. I love Power Grid. I've always felt like Frieza Matenten was a bit like Power Grid, the card game. But apparently now we're getting an officially branded one, and from what I've heard, it's very, very good. That's the early sort of rumblings about it. The other one that feels like it should have come a long time ago is a sort of junior Ticket to Ride first journey. I mean, we've had the Kids of Carcassonne, we've had Settlers of Catan Junior. Now we've got a Ticket to Ride Junior, although only available through Target in the US, those Target stores. Now, this is an odd turnaround. Suddenly we've got games coming which are Target exclusives, which in America, I mean, you'll be able to get hold of them, no big deal, right? But for the rest of us in Europe, that's a problem. I'm specifically concerned because I love Evolution. Evolution by North Star Games is my favourite game. And yet this new version, basically Evolution Junior, it's called Evolution The Beginning, is only going to be available at Target for its first year and then hopefully become wider available at that point. The other thing that popped up suddenly was this adults version of Codenames, not safe for work Codenames, basically Codenames for the Cards Against Humanity crowd. I didn't know how to feel about this when I saw this photo pop up. We've got a Spiel des Jahres winner, and within a week we have an adult version intended for people to make as rude, crude, double entendres as they possibly can. My initial reaction is it's a shame that there's a market for this sort of thing. Another thing going through your head is, well, why wouldn't a company sell the rights to do that sort of thing? I'm sure they're making a lot of money from it, and there definitely is that market there. Codenames is a better game than Cards Against Humanity. At its very core, the actual gameplay itself is quite intriguing in Codenames. Not so much in Cards Against Humanity. The game is kind of non-existent. Cards Against Humanity requires no creativity. It's just play the cards. It's a bit like reading a joke book together, an old Bernard Manning joke book or something like that. Whereas Codenames, it's still going to require some creativity on the parts of the players. So I would rather people were playing this, Codenames Deep Undercover, than playing Cards Against Humanity. But really, there are a whole load of alternative, funny party games that you can play that don't engender so much sort of lowest common denominator humour. If you want to see a bunch of alternatives, the best video I've seen on this is Actual Lol's video. Look up Actual Lol, watch his video on alternatives to Cards Against Humanity, and you'll get some good options there. So yeah, the other thing that cropped up in Target is a new version of Machikoro. Who knows what this is going to be? Is it the same game repackaged? The other games in the Target exclusives aren't. So who knows? This could be something new as well. Interesting though. Another thing that took my fancy over the last week or so was an announcement of Dixit Revelations, Dixit 7. I mean, this is no big event when a new Dixit box comes out, but every year now we're seeing one coming out around the Essen time. And this one, I love the artwork. It's a totally new style again, and yet the pictures, well, they've made me laugh already, and they look really nice. I like this new art style. I've been quite a fan of Rattus for several years now from White Goblin Games. I've got all the expansions. I've reviewed a bunch of these on my channel, so if you want to look them up on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of Europhile reviews of Rattus and its expansions. But Rattus is coming back after a while out of print with all the expansions and a new expansion. This has just been announced by White Goblin Games. So later in the year, we're back to Rattus. Rattus is set in Europe in 1347, the year the plague reached the continent. Players attempt to settle in various regions of the board, avoiding the plague and redirecting it towards their opponents. On a player's turn, they're going to place new cubes onto the board. The number of cubes placed depends on the numbers of rats in the region. They then move the plague piece, which activates the rats in a region and kills off a section of that population. In addition, players take class cards, such as soldiers or witches or farmers, which provide a special ability but also make the player's cubes more vulnerable to the plague. The expansions offer numerous alternate class cards and massive variety to the Rattus experience. Ultimately, the player with the largest surviving population at the end of the game wins. And then the final thing I thought I would show you is a couple of games that have just arrived in the post, and those are Sushi Go Party. Sushi Go Party, let me find my copy of Sushi Go Party. This is quite exciting, this big tin here. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time because Sushi Go is just a magnificent game. I've had so much fun with it. A little box of different types of sushi, card drafting games similar to Seven Wonders, passing cards around and gathering up different sets. Much simpler than Seven Wonders, but I've had great success with gamers and non-gamers with that game. And then the other game that arrived in the post is Skulking das Würfelspiel, Skulking the dice game. Now, Skulking is a trick-taking game, trick-taking card game. So it's interesting to see a trick-taking dice game. These are two of my favourite things put together. A dice game and a trick-taking game put into one. This game works around a sort of bidding mechanism, I believe, making predictions about how many tricks you're going to win, that sort of thing, as many trick-taking games do work like that. I really haven't got a clue what this is going to be like, but I'm going to give it a go because it intrigues me. So that's as much as I have to tell you for this board game vlog. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter at BoardGameWales or on BoardGameGeek. I'm Adam78. Thank you very much for watching. All the best.